A good one. So last week, for those of you guys that missed it, was looking at the vagus nerve and a whole list of ways that we can strengthen our vagal tone. And then the biohacks at the very end of Casper's book. And I asked you guys to choose 5 of them. Now I'm just going to say, just choose one, okay? And do it for 30 days. So it could be chewing gum. I mean, come on, I can't believe no one chose that one. I actually went and bought a pack of gum. But I definitely chose laughter. Actually, to be honest, if you guys want to know what I chose, I also chose not complaining. So, and it's been interesting because, as you know, my neck and everything is really not good. So I'm just like, when someone's like, how are you feeling? Well, I want to be honest. I'm like, well, you know? So it's an interesting time to choose that one. Okay, so having said all that, we can start this one now. You guys ready? So the teachings this week are truly, I know I say this to you guys every week, but one of my favorites, and some of you that have been with me for many years have done this particular teaching with me, but I've incorporated it into the new meditation that I am working on, which is the 48-day meditation. So this is going to be one of the entries for that as well. And I started by, actually I was looking up the Calvin and Hobbes books in my chest that has all my quotes in it, and I came across my favorite of all my journals that I've kept over the years. And this journal, as you can see, has been loved well and been around the world with me. This was the journal I kept in Thailand when I lived there. And so I don't find it often. I can go years without, you know, finding this particular journal, but I love to just open it and flip through it and see, you know, there's always, I was really into Walden Pond then, so Thoreau and Steinbeck, and also at the time I was really into REM. I was the activist, you know, and so my REM like lyrics, and then in the back I found, as I opened the back, the Annie Dillard quote that's one of my favorites that we use every year, all the time, that my dearest friend Hannah had sent me. And she had little notes to me on it, which made it even more special. So this really is the beginning of the teaching that we're going to come full circle at the end of. That you guys are so familiar with this quote, but I want to read it to you in its full context. What then shall I do this morning? How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. What we do with this hour and that one is what we are doing. And then she goes on about scheduling, which if I had more time I would read the whole thing to you, but she's not that fond of having a schedule. But she then gives this example. The most appealing daily schedule I know is that of a turn-of-the-century Danish aristocrat. He got up at 4 and set out on foot to hunt. At 11, he met his friends, who had also been out hunting all morning. They converged at one of these babbling brooks, he wrote. He outlined the rest of his schedule. Take a quick nap, relaxed with schnapps and a sandwich. Stretch out, have a smoke. Take a nap, or just rest. And then sit around and chat until 3. Then I hunt some more until sundown, bathe again, put on a white tie and tails to keep up appearances, eat a huge dinner, smoke a cigar, and sleep like a log. Then the sun comes up again. She says, this is living. Could it be more perfect? And then the next line is, there are no shortage of good days. And I realize this is a little different than most of us going out hunting and smoking cigars and putting on our tux at the end of the night, but I followed this by flipping to another page here, which is an article that my mom wrote 30 years ago and was in our local newspapers. That is not only one of my favorites, but actually my friend and I, Hannah, that I was talking about, is one of her favorites too, and just recently sent it back to my mom when she rediscovered it, so she loves it so much. And my mom's describing a day as well for herself. She's working up in her office. My parents owned a restaurant. She was doing the books and stuff, and she looks out the window and sees her neighbors. That's one of her favorite peeps in the world, Beulah. I even love her name. And Beulah was 97, right? And Claude was 95. And they would go out every day for their walk together around the block holding hands. And she was so taken by this, like just seeing that she wanted to run down and take their picture. But instead, she kept working. And then they came back from their walk, and they were sitting out in the porch in the sun and just, hanging out with each other. And again, my mom just loved just to see how beautiful this couple was together. And so she thought, oh, I should go take their picture. And she goes, no, they'll think I'm crazy, so she didn't. And then 2 days later, Beulah died. And my mom went to, this is all in the article that hopefully you guys will get to read. My mom goes to the funeral, and she wears orange, which is fitting because Beulah's just a firecracker, just really spunky personality and so alive. And my mom doesn't feel that the service is quite fitting for Beulah, and kind of reflecting on how she knew her and how beautiful she was. And at the end of the article, she always would leave for Florida and spend a few months there, and they were actually still driving to Florida. And when she'd get ready to leave, my mom would come visit her and bring her some things and stuff. And Beulah would always tell Mom to go raise a little hell. And my mom's like, I never raised any hell my whole life. And she's like, well, what should I do, Beulah? And she said, you should go out dancing all night with your husband. Ballroom dancing. So I love this story so much because it reminds me of, as Annie said, like the moments of our life and how we're showing up for them, kind of both ends of that story. So I was reflecting on sort of my last few weeks with Richard, and as most of you know, when we found out he had cancer, those first 2 weeks were really so beautiful because we did take walks together holding hands, and we had this tradition where I would make dinner and he would sit at the table and talk to me while I made dinner. And he always had just one job, which was to grate Parmesan cheese. And he'd always say, what can I do to help you make dinner? And I'd be like, your usual job. You'll go grate the Parmesan cheese. And he'd keep talking to me and grate the cheese. And there's so many others, watching the sunset, the little glass of wine, and all those good things. And so as the cancer progressed, he was not able to walk, was in his hospital bed, and couldn't even sit up to be in a chair at that point. But every day he would say that I feel like I'm getting stronger. I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to go for walks with you and the dogs again. Next week was always do that, and I'm going to sit there while you make dinner, and I'm going to grate that cheese. He was always going to grate that cheese again. But we kept doing the other things that we loved, holding hands, and I was, cute towards them. This probably was not on the cancer diet that we were on, but we'd always have wine together at night still. And at some point he would say, is it time for wine yet? And I was like, of course it is. If you want to do wine, it's time for wine. And we'd watch the sunset together. So I was reflecting on, those are the things that we remember as being so beautiful, that make our life rich and that we treasure. So some of you that have been with me for a while know what I take out of my wallet here. So this is a little tradition that I started where we have a dollar bill that I used to actually Xerox real dollar bills, and I got in trouble for that, people. I think Ryan gave his to a coffee person or something and never got it back. But I ask you guys to take a dollar bill that, of course, I have copies for you here, and to write on the back of it all the things that are most precious to you, or anything that comes to mind that's precious to you, like holding someone's hand and walking, or having a sip of wine as the sun sets, or all the different things that make your life rich, the little things, the things that we do in those hours of our day. So I am going to read to you this is my oldest list, and I realized I had to have written this in 2012 or 13 because that's when my mom and dad moved here. But I've kept it all these years because I like this list in particular. Mockingbird's song at night, moon setting over the ocean, the smell of coffee, the sound of raindrops on the roof, a fire in the fireplace, the sound of breath in the practice. I love that. A kiss, and next to that red wine, because sometimes those are nice together. Long bath, inspirational books, driving down Golden Lantern and seeing the ocean. I never got tired of that. Taya playing in the hose, Sasha's head on my lap, fresh flowers in the house. This one is precious because I can't do this anymore. Tuesday movies with Papa. I used to always take my dad to the movies on Tuesdays. South Coast Farm organic strawberries. holding hands, raindrops at night, the sound of a surfboard gliding in the water, riding a wave. The first sun salute of my practice, walking in the Shala and seeing my mom. I never get tired of that one either. The smell of rain, is that not a good one? Hearing a great song when you least expect it, and naps. That's what the aristocrat and I had in common, right? So I have these wonderful dollar bills that Mary has made for us, and when we finish our practice today, we're going to do this like a puja, like a meditation or devotion. So we'll pass pens out to everyone in your dollar bill, and I just want you to sit and maybe even put your hand on your heart for a minute and just really think of what really makes your life precious and beautiful, and what makes you feel rich and alive. What are the treasures of your life? And just kind of let it flow. As you write one, you think of another, and maybe save a little space at the bottom, because as you're driving home, something else will come to you, or later in the day. And then when you finish your puja, of course, you'll have your shavasana, but I want you to place this in this precious place, because we carry our wallets everywhere with us, this energy, that we have these plastic cards that tell us, how much treasures we have in the bank, or how much energy we have in this credit card or dollar bills. But it really houses, if we put this in here, the real treasures of our life, and I do think, when all life's desires are distilled, you'll cast just 2 votes: to love more and be happy, as Hafiz says. And that really is this list, the things that do really bring us joy and happiness. And, one of my students in the first class, I was looking at hers because she left it facing up. So if you don't want me to read it, don't leave it facing up. And the very first thing she had on it was sunrise. And I knew how much she loved sunrise, and to her it was one of her most magical, special things, because when we were in Panama, we'd be practicing, and she'd be heading down to the beach with her little candle, right, to do her morning little devotion with the sunrise coming up. And I thought about that, and I go, what's so great about this list is we love these things when we love them, like I always love the smell of coffee. And sometimes when life is challenging, when you're going through a really hard time, you have it then too. Like she would have the sunset when she was in Panama on a retreat and enjoying life, but she'll also have a sunset when she's going through the most difficult time, and she knows that that's what she can do. That's where she can go to nurture her soul. So I think that's it's an important thing about the list, because we're reminded of that. That we can always have these things that are our treasures. Namaste.